Hey everybody, welcome into the back room. I'm Andy Ostroy, as the kids say, OMG, OMG, OMG. I am so excited to talk with Judy Gold today. We shall get to Judy in just a second. But first, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you listening. And we'd love to hear your comments. So email us at backroomandy@gmail.com and or post on our social media, and we'll read some feedback next time. And if you like the podcast, please follow or subscribe and rate and review, and you'll be notified every time we post a new episode. So let me tell you a little bit about Judy Gold, or actually, a lot about Judy Gold. She's a film, television, and theater actor, and writer, and comedian. Her stand-up specials have appeared on HBO, Comedy Central, and Logo, and she's appeared on Netflix's Stand Out, an LGBTQ celebration. She's the host of the podcast It's Judy Show with Judy Gold, and is featured in the new Netflix documentary Outstanding, A Comedy Revolution, which explores the history of LGBTQ stand-up comedy. Her recent film credits include She Came to Me, Tripped Up, and Love Reconsidered. And her TV credits include City on a Hill, Better Things, The First Lady, Extrapolation, Life and Beth, Girls 5 Eva, and recurring roles on Awkwafina, Friends from College, and Search Party. She's won 2 Emmy Awards for writing and producing The Rosie O'Donnell Show, and has written and starred in 3 critically acclaimed off-Broadway hit shows: Yes, I Can Say That, The Judy Show, My Life as a Sitcom, and 25 Questions for a Jewish Mother. Judy's appeared on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, The Tonight Show, and has made numerous appearances on The View, The Today Show, The Drew Barrymore Show, and on MSNBC, CNN, and NewsNation as a free speech advocate. She is the author of the critically acclaimed book, Yes, I Can Say That. When they come for the comedians, we are all in trouble. Judy, welcome into the back room.
Thank you, Andy. I know I didn't hear the bio, but knowing my reps, it's from 1975 when I was in high school. But go ahead.
And it's very long. Seriously, we're dedicating like
too long.
14 minutes to your bio.
Thank you.
Seriously.
Thank you.
We should actually,
I'm very insecure.
Instead of this being a podcast episode, it should actually be a short Judy Gold documentary based on the bio.
I love that. Yeah.
So before we get into some comedy stuff, I want to ask you a little bit of a window into the soul question. Are you a dog or a cat person?
Good question. I had cats for many years. I've never had a dog. I love dogs so much. I'm like the dog whisperer. Everyone is annoyed. Like, do not stop and say hi to every dog on the way to the diner. Like, my kids get mad at me. My partner gets mad at me. Like, I love dogs so much. And in fact, this morning, I was thinking, I've never had a dog. I'm 61 years old, and I really want a dog.
So get a dog.
It's just that I travel. And then the problem is that the getting really attached and knowing you have not that long with the dog,
Yeah. No, that's true. I'm dealing with that right now. But dogs are like, they're just a great part of your life. And even if it's not a long part of your life, get a dog.
Yeah.
If you really want one, get one.
Oh,
why don't
God,
you,
I love them.
So you don't have cats anymore?
No cats. My son is allergic, and my partner's allergic. So I couldn't have any cats anymore. Plus, I was sick of the kitty litter crap.
Oh, my God. It's disgusting. I have 2 dogs
It's so
and 2
disgusting,
cats.
yeah.
I'm a dog person, not a cat person.
Yeah.
Somehow I ended up with 2 cats. It's called my daughter, Sophie.
Are they loving?
One of them is, and one of them is psycho. One of them we rescued because somebody had cut her ears off, which is just horrific.
No way. Is that the psycho one?
Good guess, Judy.
Oh, my God. I'm so good. I should have been a psychologist.
Do you think mutilation would cause a cat to be psychotic?
I mean, what is wrong with people?
I know. Isn't it crazy?
It's nuts.
How do you look at a little kitten and go, I'm going to cut her ears off? So anyway, we got her 1 week after her ears were cut off. She actually has like little stubby ears. They're like little bat ears. But she's a psycho. But she's also very loving. And in fact, she's too loving. In other words, like every time I sit down to do anything, she's all over me. The tail is in my face. Like it's I just want some private non-cat time.
Right. Well,
anyway,
talk to her. Yeah. What's her name?
Name is
Van
Lulu.
Gogh?
Lulu. Pain in the ass is her name. Lulu.
Okay. I didn't get any laugh on Van Gogh. Okay.
I'm slow this morning. I don't get the
Yeah,
Van Gogh
sorry.
reference.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, Lulu.
and
All right.
the other cat is Tuna. And my dogs are Willie and Ringo. When I'm outside and people say, "What's your dog's name?" and I go, "Ringo," they ask me, "Oh, named after the drummer?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
have you ever heard of another Ringo?
Exactly. Exactly. When I was a little girl and I wanted to be a boy, I used to make everyone call me Ringo.
Really?
Yeah, Ringo or Robert. Those were
Why
my
Ringo?
two.
That's very specific. Were you
I
like
don't know.
were
My
you a
older
drummer?
cousin still calls me Ringo. I don't know.
You don't play the
Maybe I
drums?
liked Ringo. No, I play piano.
You a Beatles fan? Know who I'm
Yeah.
interviewing in 2 weeks? Pete
Who?
Best.
Am I allowed
Yes.
to curse on this?
Yes.
Fuck you. Really? That's going to be so great.
I
I
don't
hope
even
I
know if
can.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to speak. I'm such a Beatles
Oh
fan.
my God. And he has such a great voice
Yeah,
too.
and I'm a drummer. So for me to interview the original
Oh,
drummer of the Beatles, I think I'm going to wet myself,
oh,
honestly.
that's amazing.
I hope he's the gateway drug to Paul McCartney or Ringo. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
You never know.
Judy, tell me about your childhood. What were your parents like?
My parents were older. Um, why are you laughing?
Because I feel like you're not going to answer this seriously.
No, I'm
Your
gonna
parents were
answer
older?
serious.
Older?
They were older. So they were 40. Oh no, I meant they had me when they were older.
Got it.
So my mother was 40 plus. She was going to be 41. My father was turning 48.
Oh, wow.
And I was born in 1962. I have an older brother, 1957, an older sister, 1958. And my mother grew up 2 blocks from where I live right now on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. And she went to high school with Lauren Bacall.
Wow.
Yeah, Betty Persky. And then my father grew up in Perth Amboy, New Jersey, and he went to Rutgers and he passed the bar at a very young age and then went into World War II. And met my mother years after, got a CPA. He wrote the tax laws for the state of New Jersey. So they ended up moving to the halfway point between Trenton, New Jersey and New York City. And it's a little town called Clark, New Jersey. It is known for being the most racist town in New Jersey. We lived in an area of Jews and Italians. And there was a KKK and it was ridiculous. But my grandmother, who I was very close to, she would come every weekend and I shared a room with her. And she was born in 1896. And I grew up around old people. And I hated it and I resented it, but their values were so much better as I look back than my peers' parents who were in their 20s when they had them. And, the life lessons of just because they have a nice car doesn't mean they're rich. We never had anything. It was like, you don't need that.
Right.
We don't need that. My mother was very sarcastic, very funny, and very anxious and depressed. And my father was such a gentleman and kind and, sort of a Renaissance man. Like he played the violin and we had a vegetable garden, like we grew our own vegetables and very old fashioned, very Jewish. We did Shabbat. We were kosher. We went to synagogue every weekend. And my brother and sister were very shy and soft-spoken. I am the identified patient in the family.
Let me ask you about the Jewish thing, because there's a lot of craziness in the world right now with anti-Semitism and all these protests, and a lot of it coming from the left, which is insane. What's your take on all this? I know you've been outspoken on it.
I've been very outspoken. I just muted while you were talking because fucking goddamn ambulance. It's every fucking time. It's like, shut up. No one is driving in front of you. Like, it's like.
They just get off on that noise.
They just love it. It's like, no, whatever. It is it's a nuanced issue, and yet there's no nuance in it for the haters. So, I love being a Jew. I'm a proud Jew. I've been to Israel 3 times. I went once as a comedian to do a benefit for a camp for kids with PTSD. I went in 2022 because my son was playing basketball in the Jewish Olympics, the Maccabee Games.
Wow.
So I went as a parent. And then I went last year on an LGBTQ plus mission. And seeing Israel through the eyes of the gay community was just incredible. And I learned something every time I go there. And I've been to the, Yad Vashem 3 times. And you could go 1,000 times and still learn something.
Mm-hmm.
But the situation now, I grew up in a house. As I said, my father served in World War II. And we were reminded that I have a whole bit in my act, that we, all they talked about was that everyone hated the Jew. Like, I would be having dinner, and I'm like, the chicken is delicious. They all hate us. Everyone hates us. The minute you leave the room, they're going to call you a dirty Jew. They're not your friends. Okay? They're all anti-Semitic. All right. So that was what I listened to. And my brother and sister and I made fun of her all the time. And now we're like, she was right. So growing up in that environment, and all of my parents' friends who had accents were Holocaust survivors, having a mother who was such a proud Jew, and, being Jewish was a very important part of our lives, and it still is of my life. The state of Israel is, and, you don't realize it until you go there. It is very emotional to be a Jew and go to Israel, because we recite the history from there religious people every day. And to go to that wall, to be around all Jews and not feel like the other. I mean, I know what it feels like to be the other because I'm gay. And to see this evolution of outward anti-Semitism, willful ignorance. And, it's funny because in the gay community, gay Jews are not safe. They're being harassed at Pride events. And I just did an event for this organization, a Wider Bridge, that I'm on the board of. And the security for a little cocktail party is beyond. And the fact that you cannot have a conversation is really the part that gets to me. Is like there's so much misinformation. And what I wanted to make the point of being gay, like, I know what it's like to be in the closet. And I met a guy there works for a big healthcare company, who's out at work, but he will not tell anyone he's Jewish. So Jews are going in the closet. I mean, it's awful. My kids are like, don't wear your Jewish star in the subway. I get on stage, I have my, bring them home dog tag. I have my Jewish star. What does that say to you? That says to you, I hate Palestinians. I don't care about all these innocent people dying. We're 0.2% of the population. 0.2% of the population. And we're fighting the entire world as usual. I don't think that. I don't want it. None of us want innocent Palestinians dying. We don't want babies dying and children dying. What are you, crazy?
Well, the craziness is that what you just said is that we Jews, I'm Jewish, and after October 7th, I went out and bought this. I haven't worn something like this since I was bar mitzvah, I think. And Jen, too. Jen is wearing a Jewish star.
Right.
We are forced to sort of say that, to defend ourselves. We don't want to see babies, innocent children. But then I remember the people pulling down the hostage posters. I'm like, well, those were innocent people. Why do you get to show hate towards
Andy,
innocent babies and children and women but I have to defend myself all the time. That's right.
Right, because they're Jews.
Because your mother was right. Your mother was right. I say it all the time.
My mother was right.
The world hates Jews, always has, always will.
And always will. Mm-hmm. And, this idea that Jews, when they say, I think Israel has a right to exist and to defend itself, the connotations that people take with that it's beyond.com. And why do we always have to qualify that?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
They don't qualify it. Mm-hmm. They don't say, but yes, the hostages, yes, I know they're innocent people, who were sleeping in their friggin' bed. Yep. When I think about being a little girl, I mean, every Jewish kid goes through this. You read the Diary of Anne Frank. If you go to Hebrew school, you learn a lot about anti-Semitism at a very young age. And I remember the Anne Frank diary and reading that. And the one thing that stuck to me, I was growing up in a suburb in New Jersey, that you lay in bed, especially if you're a creative person, wonder, so what would it be like if someone just knocked on my door and said, get the fuck out of here. Mm-hmm. You have 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. You're done. And I would think that, and that's what happened on October 7th.
Yep.
And yet we had sympathy for a day or two, and then it's back to the conspiracy theories. And when you think about everything Israel, let's just say, we could say Jews and Nobel Prizes and everything we've contributed to the world. But when you think of all the things Israel has contributed to the world at large, mm-hmm. to all these people who hate us, who have cell phones, who have GPS, who have clean water, who have, heart transplants, and yet you hate us?
Well, the world hates Jews for the same reason that Trump has almost half of this country supporting him. And that's because people need to blame someone else for their failures. Jews,
but it's always us, Andy. Yeah. It's always us.
Well, because the productivity, the achievement, the accomplishments, the success from that tiny microscopic percentage that we are of society, there's no waste in the Jewish religion and Jewish culture,
right.
Jewish people.
Right.
For the most part, everyone is smart and successful and accomplished, and people hate that. People hate that because a lot of them aren't, and that's why Trump is able to, put half of this country in a cult, because they want to blame everybody else for their failures. I don't know how or when if that could ever change.
It's been since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
The beginning of time. And also when you mention Trump, these Jews who are like, I'm voting for Trump. He's the only one. He's not good for. How do you put aside his character? The fact that he is a convicted felon, he's a rapist, he's a grifter, he's a liar. You wouldn't want your kids behaving like him. And you look at Netanyahu, all these people from the river to the sea, go to Israel on a Saturday night and see how many people are protesting Netanyahu's policies, mm-hmm. because they have freedom of speech. They have freedom to protest. It's pride. It is pride. And, they call that pink washing. Only place you are safe as a gay or trans or any other person.
Right. I was going to ask you,
Israel.
It must drive you crazy when you see the college protests, yes. Queers for Palestine.
Queers for Palestine. What is that? You go there. I want them all to go to Gaza.
Right. It's crazy.
See what it's like. And, when I was in Israel for that, when I did the mission with the Wider Bridge, one of the LGBTQ centers, if a Palestinian escapes and goes to Israel to seek they are granted asylum if they're, gay or trans. They are put up in an LGBTQ center. They're given shelter, medical care, counseling. One of the social workers we met with is Palestinian and deals with all the Palestinians who come to Israel. A quarter of the population is not Jewish. The people in their government, there's a very high percentage not Jewish.
But they serve on the Knesset, you know.
Right. It's just.
But that's the thing we were saying before, that we have to say these things and defend the obvious is just.
And there's so few of us.
Mm-hmm.
There's so few of us doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And the media, it's unbelievable.
Well, you mentioned the
complicit
Jews in
they
the
are,
closet, and then we can move on to comedy. But I'm sure you saw that thing on the subway the other day where they were asking for Zionists. Say you're a Zionist now because, this is your last
Raise
chance.
your hand.
Raise your hand.
Raise your hand.
And I just know the way I'm wired. My hand would be up and I would be screaming.
Same.
What are you going to do, fucking kill me? And maybe
Right.
I would have been killed. But the fact that I have to think about this, because there's no way I would sit there silent. No way.
Oh,
No
same.
way.
And I know my kids wouldn't either. And also, Andy, the term pro-Palestinian is a misnomer.
Right.
It should be pro-Hamas because that's exactly what you are.
Yeah.
Pro-Hamas.
Mm-hmm. Look, I am pro.
And they're laughing. They're in Qatar.
Yeah.
Look at these fucking idiots.
Well, because everything is full circle. Netanyahu wants Trump to become president. Qatar, all of these extremist Arab countries, they want Trump because it sows discord in this country and it's better for them. It's better for the conflict against Israel because it's going to mean more inflammatory things Trump's going to do, just like moving the embassy and getting his own settlement named after him by Netanyahu in the West Bank.
And Netanyahu's a criminal, and so is his wife.
Yeah.
And as long as he's in power, he's not being convicted of all his crimes.
I just wish people would be able to separate the way we separate America from Trump, right? We had 4 years of Trump. America was an ugly place led by an ugly, horrible monster. And hopefully we're not going to be in that situation again. But America per se wasn't Trump or the Trump administration. Israel is not Netanyahu. It is not the policies per se of Netanyahu. It is still a country of good, decent people who want peace just as much as everybody else. As evidenced by the protests that you talk about. They want him gone. And Benny Gantz resigns from the war cabinet because they want him gone. But like you said, it goes back centuries. People love to scapegoat Jews and hate Jews, and this is a great opportunity. Look, if you're a Jew hater, this is your season.
Oh my God, shine the light, baby.
Yeah.
Shine the light, oh shine the light.
So, all right. So, did you first do stand-up on a dare? Is that true?
I did. So, by the way, someone hacked my wiki page, and
so everything I'm about to ask you is bullshit and wrong. Is that what I'm hearing right now?
It's there's going to be a little bit of bullshit. Yeah.
Well, it's good because I don't look at Wikipedia.
We're trying to get it updated.
I do my own research.
Updated. Yeah.
So
I do that too.
Stand up on a dare.
Yeah. So I was I a sophomore? I was a sophomore in college, and we used to do Secret Santas.
Mm-hmm.
And
which all Jews do.
Yeah. And we were a very fun floor that we lived on. And so we took it very seriously. And you would get a note under your door or whatever from your Secret Santa giving you an assignment. And, then after you completed that assignment, you got a little present. And then at the Christmas party, holiday party, whatever, our RA, Howard, would dress up as Santa and call the person. There's here's a big gift for this person. And then they would find out who their Secret Santa was. And we would make people do the most ridiculous thing. I remember my freshman year, I remember one girl had to walk around with an apple on her head for days. And so I got this note saying that I had to do 5 to 10 minutes of stand-up comedy and use the people on the floor as material. And I had 2 days to do it. And it was like, I took it so seriously. And I didn't go to class, and I wrote jokes about everyone who lived on the floor. And when I stood there in our, it wasn't a lobby. It was a, what was the room on
Quad?
the floor where? No, God damn it, Judy. Whatever. Our lounge. Shit with this fucking age thing. So in the lounge, and people would have to do, I remember one person they played Let It Rain, and they had, every time they got to the chorus, everyone got to pour water on them. It was, all right, so I had to do the stand-up comedy, and I remember standing there. I mean, I still remember it, and I did my first joke, and I got my first laugh, and it literally, like, I had come out of my body. I was watching myself. It was the greatest feeling of
You took a hit of crack.
I can't even tell. It was, and I was like, oh my God, this is what I'm meant to do.
That's incredible.
And I pursued it from that point on. Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is you owe your entire career to a Jewish guy named Howard,
Rosenstein.
a Jewish Santa Claus.
Howard Rosenstein.
Nice.
And let me tell you something.
Does he know that?
As the ambulance comes to pick me up, I thank him in every show I do. There's always special thanks to Howard Rosenstein, and we're still best friends.
That's incredible.
Uh-huh.
You know, I did stand-up for a bunch of years back in the 90s. You are 100% right. That first time you do it and there's a laugh, it is like taking a hit of crack. It is the most fun thing in the world when it works. But anyway.
It's a lot of fucking work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
Well,
and, you know, most comedians, they do well the first time. You know, if they do well the first time they're on stage, that's it. That's the kiss of death, because you're not going to do well the second time. So,
growing up, who were your comedy inspirations?
I loved Toady Fields. I loved Phyllis Diller. I loved Joan Rivers. When I was in high school, I loved Elaine Boozler. But it really was, you know, those variety shows we grew up on. And it was the funny women who I was so drawn to. And you know, especially Toady, because she was so brutally honest and silly. She was silly. You know, and physical. Like, she was so not self-conscious. And yet she was self-conscious, because she wouldn't have been so funny had she not known what she was doing. And I remember Joan, and I remember thinking, I didn't think this, but this is what it is in adult talk, that you're watching The Tonight Show, and here is this hilarious, brash, tiny Jewish woman saying things that everyone's thinking and no one's saying. And here's this guy from Nebraska, the whitest man on earth, so goyish, getting the biggest kick out of her. And that, to me, you know, he was smitten with her.
Yeah, the contrast was amazing. I remember those.
Yeah. I loved Richard Pryor. I loved George Carlin, you know, and I loved them for different reasons, you know, because I loved their honesty and their truth. I love Moms Mabley.
Do you think all that stuff can fly today?
No, absolutely not.
Isn't
absolutely
that terrible,
not.
though?
I mean, I did, as you know, I wrote a book. And it was a show.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can say that.
I can say
when
that.
they come for the comedians, we are all in trouble.
That was, I did a show based on the book, which we're bringing back, directed by B.D. Wong, and I wrote it with my friend Eddie Sarfati. And in it, I discuss that. I discuss, where would these women be right now? I mean, Joan would be canceled. Phyllis would be canceled. Toady they'd all be canceled. And it's a different time. And words have different meanings, and we lived through other experiences. But to go back and cancel people from the past, when the world was in a completely different mindset, things that were acceptable that are no longer acceptable, things were in the zeitgeist that are no longer in the zeitgeist. You know, this stuff is erasing history, and is why we get to these points where we are now, where people are just dumb. They are not aware of their history. And that comes with a sense of entitlement, especially in the gay community. I talk about this, young gay people there. I'm in a documentary that just came out on Netflix called Outstanding, Comedy Revolution. It's the history of LGBTQ plus comedy. And I hate saying all those fucking letters. I'm an old gay when it was just, LGB, and then it was LGBT, and then it became a fucking shit show. But
how many? Wait. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
How many letters will it eventually be?
It's identity, and and in a way, and it's desire or preference. I don't give a shit what you do shut the fuck up. Why do we have to micromanage our identities? It's ridiculous. I don't need to know everything about you.
Right.
Tell me your name,
right?
What you want to be called, and let's have a conversation. Shut the fuck up. Anyway, but I'm an old gay, so whatever. But there is this.
That'd be a great name for another one-woman show. Just shut the fuck up.
Yeah, shut the fuck up, you fucking idiots. Yeah, that's good.
Thank you.
You know who would love that?
You're welcome. Huh?
Thank you. Instagram would love that. They love any kind of curse words and stuff like that. Yeah.
Wait, I mean, should there be anything off limits when it comes to art?
No. And here's the deal. There's so many people I don't agree with. When you shut people down, when you silence them, then you can silence me.
Right.
And who's the decision maker in that?
Right. Exactly.
Some bureaucrat, some dean of a college. No, you're not making decisions for me. You don't want to read a book, don't read a book. If you don't like what's in a book, write another book saying why that is, misinformation or whatever, I don't believe, there's a situation right now, Andy, which I didn't know whether to write about this on, because once you make statements or write opinions on social media, and then all of a sudden you lose 500 followers. And it's just because you're such an open-minded person. But so there is a thing right now on the internet where a very outspoken Jewish advocate, Zionist, against, very anti-Semitism, really, really wonderful, really posts wonderful stuff. She lives, I guess, in Detroit, and there is a very anti-Semitic comedian coming to a comedy club in Detroit, and she's trying to get them to cancel that person's show. And I have dealt with this, actually, with one of the same owner of this. We performed a show called Stand Up for Israel. Well, no, anyway, we ended up calling it Badass Jews, because Stand Up for Israel is so loaded. And we had protesters there. And I don't want my show canceled. The people in the club were, the workers were like, we're not coming in because it's this Badass Jew show, and you're doing the same thing. Let her come.
Sure.
Go sit in the audience.
Yeah.
And don't laugh. Be an activist.
Right.
But don't silence people, because there's no good in that. Except I do have an issue with lying. I have a lot of issues with what the shit that Trump says. That's just bullshit. That kind of stuff, you can't yell fire in a movie theater, but you can say I had 20 million people at my rally. And you can just lie.
Yeah. Well, I guess the line, if there is a line, and I'm not sure there is, but perhaps the line should be something that incites violence, something that is unequivocally hateful. It's one thing to say a joke, like Chappelle talks about different things, trans, whatever. I mean, certain comedians say things about ethnic groups, whatever. It may be offensive to some in the sense that they don't find it funny. but I don't know if those things are actually spewing hate. Okay, they're just commenting. They're just commenting. So,
there's intent. Yeah.
Intent to spew hate, and perhaps in that spewing of hatred, violence can ensue from that on some level. But Richard Pryor, I think he's the funniest guy that ever lived. And I actually had this conversation with Judd Apatow on this podcast, and I said one of my favorite routines of Richard Pryor's is when he imitates the stuttering Chinese waiter, which is brilliantly funny. It is physical. It is just so fucking funny. And I said, could he do that again? And he goes, probably not, because there's probably a stuttering Chinese person somewhere who's going to get offended. And I get that.
No. That's wrong. The stuttering Chinese person would find it funny, and they would feel represented. Well, and the other people who are woke as hell would be like, oh, that's terrible.
But this is the point you raised before about who is the arbiter of this? Who decides what's funny or what's appropriate? Picasso put eyeballs in a woman's forehead, and
here's the thing.
Would he not be allowed to paint anymore? I mean, where do we draw the line with this stuff? Especially when we're living in a world that is such a hotbed of issues right now. Like, wouldn't this kind of social commentary, that Lenny Bruce-like comedic commentary, isn't that exactly what's needed right now?
150,000%. Mm-hmm. And, stand-up comedy is so American. It is such a direct result of our First Amendment rights. And in other countries, comedians are killed. They are killed. They are jailed. Satire is not, Trump couldn't even go to the White House Correspondents' Dinner. That's how powerful comedy is. Mm-hmm. But, when you talk about stereotypes, and I put that in quotes because, first of all, stereotypes didn't come out of thin air. They came from our histories. And when you use a stereotype to describe a particular person who has that trait, and not an entire group of people, you're not, I talked about my Jewish mother all the time. And, I would get shit from the Jewish Daily Forward, and other women. You're promoting a stereotype. No, I'm not. I'm talking about my mother. And that is how she talks. And
you're a comedian.
Right. And so,
if you're a comedian and you're a Jewish comedian and you don't get to talk about your Jewish mother anymore, something is radically wrong in this country.
And let me tell you something, Andy. So many comedians right now Jewish comedians are saying, I'm not doing my Jew jokes because it's not worth it. Because you feel, I felt this when I came out on stage. You feel the audience like, whoa. And when you start even benign Jewish jokes, I've never seen anything like it. You get this, it just, the room changes. And I'm like, why? This was funny on October 6th. It's still funny. Mm-hmm. Stop it.
Look, one of the funniest things I've ever heard came out of your mouth. And
really?
Yeah. Why don't you get a little comfortable? Get a little comfortable, and I'll tell you about it.
Well, let me get a toy out. Hold on. Okay.
So I recently had Fern Perlstein on. She has a film, of course,
I love Fern. Yeah.
Called The Last Laugh, which you are a part of. And the film is about, can you be funny about the Holocaust, right? It is an interesting subject. So she gets a lot of comedians together, and Mel Brooks and Judy Gold. And in that film, she talks about your joke that...
And she butchered my joke. She called me after the podcast, and she butchered it. But go ahead.
You're the comedian. You tell it.
I had a joke. If I was standing online naked for the gas chambers, would I hold my stomach in?
That's genius. It's genius because it's funny, and it's biting, and it's a commentary on body issues that women go through today, all wrapped up into one.
Right. So that is exactly right. That is exactly right. And it was a thought I had when I used to watch A&E when I was on the road. Remember, A&E was just all World War II all the time when it first came out. And that's what I would watch when I was on the road because I was so depressed.
The early days of Hitler.
Yes. And that voice, yes. And Hitler decided to, And so that really came to I was like, God, they're standing there, they're, naked. Like, are they even think, that is the joke. You get the joke.
Because people would think that.
Right. And also, people get mad at me. I acknowledge the Holocaust happened every time I tell that joke.
Yes.
I get on stage and talk about the Holocaust. Just shut the fuck up. It's not about you. Everyone thinks everything is about them. And it's not about you. Take yourself out of the equation, because no comedian was thinking about your childhood trauma when they wrote their material.
Yeah. Well, the beauty of that film is that she also interviews Holocaust survivors.
Right.
And they say, yeah, there's a lot of shit that's funny. And there's some people who say it's not funny. And you know what? Great. That's called opinion.
Good. That's your opinion. Mm-hmm. And there's a book about, I was looking to see if I have it on this shelf. No, it's in the hallway. But about humor in the Holocaust. It's a very dense book. But, you read these stories from these survivors and the camps. And one woman said, if it wasn't for the humor, we would have all committed suicide.
Yes.
Because I'm paraphrasing, but it made us feel, alive. It made us feel, making jokes about these horrible people. It was the only way to cope. And we have done that for thousands of years. When you think about, people always ask me, why are there so many Jewish comedians? And, you think about the Jewish religion. When you get bar bat mitzvah, your job is to take this piece of Talmud or the Torah, a story that's been told thousands and billions and millions and trillions of times, and say, take something from this story and make it about you and make it personal and how it relates to you. Mm-hmm. And think at it. And, it's like saying, look at this from another perspective. And that's what a joke is. It's a surprise. It's it's a way of seeing, like, oh my God, that caught me by surprise. Oh, I never thought of it that way. Oh God, that's hilarious. I never married those two things together, and it, great comedy, it makes you laugh and it makes you think. And you talk about, what is it okay to say? You can talk about anything, any subversive topic, but make it a great joke. Otherwise, you're done.
Yeah. But also, but people we're all different. You can meet someone at a party and go, wow, that guy was really funny. Oh, she was really boring. Well, if both of those people face some kind of tragedy, probably the guy who's really funny is going to go through his tragedy like I did when Adrian was murdered. And you worked with my late wife, and I want to ask you about that in a second. But I was that guy. I made jokes. I wasn't making murder jokes, but my levity, my humor was still there. And that was a way of letting people know that I'm still there. The person who's dull and boring in real life, when they had a tragedy, they're probably not going to make jokes about it in any way, shape, or form. And that's okay, because we're all different. And the real concern here is that when some people decide that what some other people are doing isn't funny, isn't right,
offended
isn't good.
By proxy.
That's right. Yep. And that's where we are today. It's just it's
really
the worst I've ever
cycle.
seen it in my life. And it's kind of scary.
Same. And it's so funny because, as a comedians, we have a secret line. Like, we literally, the biggest tragedy could happen, and we call each other up with every one of our too soon things that came into our head. And, there's things I can only say to other comics.
God, can you add me to that call?
Oh my God, it's the best. It's the best.
I really want to be on that list.
I'll text you. You're on my text list.
Great.
But yeah. And, I have to say, when we talk about Adrian, the thing I remember most about that, when we were shooting that film, I couldn't stop laughing. Mm-hmm. Her, first of all, she was like a ball of light, like joy. Mm-hmm. And I just remember we were shooting and we couldn't stop laughing, and the dialogue was so funny, and the way she directed us, I still think about her, and I think about your loss and your daughter's loss, and oh, it just makes me so angry and sad because she was something else.
Yeah, she was. And, it was a 1997 short film that she made called Lois Lives a
Lois
Little.
lives a little.
And it was about maybe 6 or 7 years after her Hal Hartley success. And she was trying to transition to be a writer-director. And it was maybe around the same time she made her first film, Sudden Manhattan. And then she made I'll Take You There. And then eventually Waitress, which was her obvious swan song. But you're right. She was the funniest woman I had ever met in my life, and probably in the top 3 funniest human beings I'd ever met in my life. All we ever did was laugh, and it was such a unique sense of humor. But she was also a very kind, generous, compassionate person. She was really, there's certain people you go through in life and you meet them and you realize like there's no one else like this person.
That's right.
And
that's right.
And she was one of them. And it is but I would have killed myself if I wasn't able in that moment in time to not look at this whole thing through the lens of some kind of humor, because it was better for me and it was better for everyone around me. I remember there was a moment where everybody was in my house, 50, 60, 80 people, whatever. And I could see everyone looking at me like, when is he going to crack? What's going to, and the tension, the nervous energy and the heaviness. And my first wife was there. She was taking care of the food. My second wife, she was there. She was taking care of the garbage and all that. And I'm watching them running around, and I stopped and I like hit the spoon on a glass to get everybody's attention. And they looked at me like, this is it. This is where he's going to fucking crack.
Right.
And I did the comedic, purposeful pause to build up the tension. And I said, I just needed to point out that I have 2 ex-wives running around my house serving me right now. Or something like that. And everyone laughed.
Right.
And it was one of those like, oh my God, thank God, thank you.
Thank you.
And
that's exactly it.
Yeah,
that
but the most
power.
important thing in that moment to me was that it allowed them to see me and go, he's going to be okay, because
he's human.
He's still there. And I'll never forget that moment because it meant so much to me, because there were so many people I loved there, and I needed to let them feel good for a second, because they were just so, it was a horrible situation for everyone. And that's why humor is so fucking important. And when you see,
a great joke is a buildup of tension and then a release.
Yeah. And so when you write, when you do that, they're coming for the comedians and the book that you write, that's a scary, scary place to be. So I want to know what your process is as a comedian. Like when I did comedy, sometimes things would just come to my head and it was like, oh my God, I could perform this in a half hour. It's like almost fully written, fully formed. Then there was like a good setup, but it needed a punchline or vice versa. How do you come about the ideas that you think about and eventually use? What is your process for getting it to the point of, I can go on stage with it right now?
So I have tried to sit and just write, like a lot of comedians, I'm just going to sit here and write. And that doesn't work for me. What works for me is reading and doing all this stuff. And then I have a little notebook and I write ideas or, things, or I've created an opinion and how can I, bring this to stage. And I have 2 parts of my comedy notebook. One is all the sets I've done with the, you name the joke, like with one word, and then notes I take after I've gone on stage, and ideas that come to my head, and then that shit on stage. And I say, okay, I want to talk about this. Have you, I never say, have you ever noticed? But, I'll do it. And a lot of time, I'm very comfortable on stage. I've been doing this 42 years. And so I will say, oh my God, I thought that was so funny. I was so excited to do, what is wrong with that? When I ask the audience, because, think about stand-up, it is the only art form where the audience is a major part of the creative process. And so when they turn on you, they don't realize the responsibility. You talk about, Van Gogh. I mean, he never, or there was never a time where he's painting and he's halfway done, and he brings it in front of a crowd. And is like, who wants another sunflower?
Right.
Leonard Bernstein, never conducted, and like turned to the insurance adjuster in the third row and was like, too much oboe, and that's what we do,
Yeah.
And so I record myself sometimes. I hate listening to it, but you forget. So I always take notes after I go on stage, and I always bring up a card with the stuff I really want to get to, because I get bored with my material really easily. And I could get on stage and just kill every night, but it's not doing the work, I have to write new material, and you have to address the elephant in the room.
And I know this is an overused term, probably mainly because of Jerry Seinfeld, but would you describe yourself as just mostly observational? You're just walking down the street. How do you come up with what you come up with?
This phone is full of recordings of joke about blah, 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 Elisa, my partner, just said this, kids, blah, blah. Yeah. Right. It's the curse of a comic is that you just can't stop. You're always working. Your brain is always, and you have to live. It's so funny when you think of, comedians, and people are like, oh my God, he was so funny years ago, and now he's not funny anymore. If you don't live in the real world with other people, you're not going to be funny. So if you start believing all the shit about yourself, and you got to have some humility.
Right.
You have to be able to, relate to these people. And Andy Kaufman used to, like, in between whatever he was doing, he'd drive a cab or, do something. So he was part of everyone. And the other thing this is the stupidest, but when I was on the road a lot, and I'd go to these towns, and I'm like, okay, I always try to get there early and write some material about that place, or, the traffic, whatever, so that they're like, oh, and they fucking love that. But also, if you look at local newscasters, that's how you dress. You go, oh, okay, I'm not going to get that dressed up for this, because they're going to think you know what I mean? That I always check out the local newscasters. Yeah. Because for a woman, you gotta win them over immediately.
Who are the comics today that you really like?
Oh God, there's so many. I love Chris Rock. I've always loved Chris Rock. I love Wanda Sykes. Oh my God, that's such a horrible fucking question, because I love Paula Poundstone.
They should do like a weird Paula Poundstone impersonation.
Oh yeah, I love her. Young comics today, I love Gary Veeder. I love Carmen Lynch. I love Jessica Kirson.
She's so fun. I used to perform with her.
Oh yeah, she's a hard worker, that one.
What do you think of Chappelle?
God.
As a gay person, what do you think of Chappelle?
I always thought Chappelle was so funny. And as a gay, I don't understand. There's so much to talk about that's what you choose to focus on. That is what I don't understand. And even the SNL thing. I mean, it's funny, but it's, that saying, Jews run the media.
They don't? That was me pretending to be
true.
Anti-Semitic.
I know. I know, Andy. You don't have to explain the fucking joke to me. No, but
I've been told in the past that I actually do have to explain my jokes, because rumor has it they weren't always funny.
What?
I'm cursed.
Yeah, that's the thing I don't get with him is why?
Yeah. Well, it got him attention. I don't know.
Right, but don't you have enough? You left your show because someone laughed the wrong way. at something
Mm-hmm.
or made you think, what am I doing here? I'm just this, pawn or whatever he thought. And yet, yeah, I don't understand it. I don't understand it.
But someone like him, he's not cancelable, is he?
No, he's got his fan base.
Mm-hmm.
He's got money. And I don't believe people should be canceled. The only one I really think, please, is Bill Cosby.
Right. Well, that little rape thing.
Yeah,
that's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, he didn't really do it.
Because he's Bill Cosby. He's so funny. He was he was that nice
dad
on
Dr.
TV.
Huxtable. Yeah.
Doesn't that drive you crazy? Because this actually leads into my next question.
A fucking wall.
My next question is, what pisses Judy Gold off the most?
Oh my God. Okay, there's two things that really piss me off. Incompetence. People who fucking don't do their job. Your job is to take my order and then deliver it to my house. And you write it down, and then I pay you, and you deliver what I paid for on the phone call that I spoke. Like, what? Why? That pisses me off. Also, people who are like, no, we can't do that. No, that's against the rule. No, it isn't. It isn't against the rule. All right. I'm just going to give you one example, and then I have another thing that I get really pissed off about. So I'm getting on a flight, and I have 2 fake knees. I have 2 titanium knees. And I go through that fucking body scanner thing where they can see your vagina and everything. Okay. And I was wearing my dog tag, and I go through, and on the screen is a rectangle right here with like the triangle and the exclamation point, like warning. And I said, oh my God, it's my dog tag. I forgot to take it off. Because most of the TSA people were like, oh, take it off or just put it behind you, whatever. Mm-hmm. I said, can I go back? Can I take it off and go back through? No, I have to pat you down. I don't want to be patted down. I have to pat down your breast. Like, until I'm just like, no, you don't. Like, you don't have to do that. You can be a fucking decent human being. Mm-hmm. Like that kind of, I don't know. I hate that. And the thing I really hate the most is inequality and people who fucking think they're better than people, mm-hmm. and people who treat servers like shit. Yep. Like, fuck you. You are no better than anyone else. Mm-hmm. You are just lucky. And ugh.
I'm with you on that. I used to be a waiter when I was younger, and I totally agree with that. People can be really assholes.
I know.
And I'm going to riff on your first thing. You know what really pisses me off? When I'm in a restaurant and the fucking waiter or waitress refuses to write everything down. Refuses to write down the order, and then brings everything wrong. This happens every single time.
Yes. When they stand there like this, like, don't you worry. Yeah. Don't you worry. I got your order. You know what? I'm a member of Mensa. Yeah. And when they do that, I purposely have to be like, and with 3 ice cubes and 2 olives, and I hate that.
That's a great idea. Just make it more complicated.
Right. Make it really complicated.
Yeah. What is it? Do you think it's just like I'm in Mensa, I'm smart, I don't need to fucking write this shit down?
Absolutely.
Otherwise, it makes no sense.
And it's just like, I got it. Yeah. Like it's so hubris. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh my God.
All right. So you had a one-woman show called 25 Questions for a Jewish Mother. It's based on a series of interviews with more than 50 Jewish mothers in the United States. Their stories are interspersed with anecdotes about your own mother and your life as a lesbian mother of 2 sons. What is the quintessential Jewish mother?
I thought they were all going to be the same, and they were all so vastly different. But the one thing they had in common was whenever sometimes we would go to synagogue. Sometimes they would come to my hotel room if I was on the road or whatever. But whenever we went and interviewed someone at their home or interviewed them and their friends at their home, there was a shitload of food. That was the one thing. There was always food. What do you want to eat? I'm going to have food, food, food. And it's like, that is such a Jewish thing, because there are people that we will have dinner parties and they're not Jewish. And we're like, oh, we should order a pizza before we go over there, you know, because it's going to be like soup and an oyster, you know?
Right. That's
yeah.
so true.
So it's a very, you know, come eat, eat, eat.
Right. But then they also all agree that you can't go in the water for a half hour after you.
Right. Yes, I do a joke about that. I do a joke about Jews and guns, and how where I grew up, none of the Jews had guns, because how were you supposed to handle a gun? Well, we can't go swimming 25 minutes after we've eaten a tuna fish sandwich. So it's always a tuna fish sandwich. Have you noticed that? Yeah.
But I want to ask you then, are there neighborhoods that you're aware of where all the Jews are packing?
Oh, I did a joke in Florida about Jews don't own guns, and they all turned on me. In fact, someone wrote a nasty comment on something I posted. Yeah, she's an idiot. You know, she was talking about, you know, how Jews don't have guns, and no, we told her. Yeah.
I'm sure if the minute this is over, one of us or both of us go online, I'm sure there's like a group, an organization called Jews for Guns, because there's an organization for anything.
Yeah,
right?
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it probably has like
Absolutely.
like two members.
Don't you think about it, Andy, now with all this anti-Semitism?
I do. Well, I have a house upstate New York, and I've never lived in a house in my entire life until 20 years ago. I've always been in apartments. Now I'm out in what to me feels like the middle of nowhere, and every time I put my head down and go to sleep, I always feel like I'm going to wake up and there's going to be like a room full of people in deliverance in my bedroom.
It's really hard for people in the city to go into the wilderness.
Yeah, because we go from the worst place to the safest place, and we think just the opposite is going to happen.
Right, exactly.
And the worst thing that's going to happen is you just trip over a chipmunk.
Here's another siren.
Yeah, what the hell's happening right now where you are, Judy?
I live off of Amsterdam Avenue, and it's the thoroughfare to like Mount Sinai and all these friggin' hospitals. And it's just like, shut the fuck up.
By the way, Judy, I find it shocking that a Jewish lesbian lives on the Upper West Side. Shocking.
I know. It's crazy. I mean, people
I'm going to be thinking about that all day.
What are you doing here? Yeah.
I want to ask you about your podcast. Tell us about that.
It's called it's Judy Show with Judy Gold. It was for many years. I started in 2015, called Kill Me Now, because as you can probably tell, I get aggravated over everything. And I would always ask the guests like what pisses them off. And then Kill Me Now during this particular time, and the fact that I have Holocaust survivors on, and that when you Google Kill Me Now, it's like, are you thinking of committing suicide? Do you want to take your own life? So not a good name for a podcast. So it's Judy Show starring Judy Gold. And I do these intense interviews where I do a lot of research. And then every 2 weeks, I do a rant where I just go off on every fucking thing that's pissing me off. And I love it. I mean, I love this. I love, like, you're a great podcast host. I am, like, the time is flying by. I'm having a great conversation. And I love this art form when it's done well. So it's sort of the, you know, Judy Gold, Andy Ostroy podcast. Just say it's very similar. And then, except I ring a bell for anything Jewish. So if I have a Jew on, it's like the whole fucking time. So I have to, sometimes I ring the bell like 20 times before we have a conversation. But yeah, so that's what my podcast's called. It's Judy Show with Judy Gold. And people love, like, I'm always like, I'm not doing it anymore. I don't make any money. And people are like, no. All right.
All right. So my last question is another window into the soul question. And music is the best window into the soul. So I want to know Judy Gold, Jewdy, Judy.
Hey now.
There
that's
you
funny.
go. So give me Judy Gold's top 5 musical artists of all time.
I'm going to have to say Carole King. I mean, she wrote so many songs for other people. I don't think people realize that. I loved her. Really loved George Gershwin.
Okay. Good choice.
And Aaron Copland. Can I do George Gershwin and Aaron Copland together?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. Karen Carpenter's voice to me is of an angel. An angel. Burt Bacharach's syncopation, to me, the fusion of pop and jazz. I fucking love him.
One more.
Oh, fuck. I could go classical. I mean, I could be the ultimate Jewish girl from New Jersey, and say Barbra Streisand, but
wow,
even though it is, I mean, I fucking love her so much, I can't even tell you. But it's like I love so much different music. God damn it, Andy!
No lesbian singers.
I gotta round it up.
Laura Nero, you didn't mention Laura Nero.
Oh, Laura Nero!
Look at you! I'm a better lesbian than you are.
Yes, Laura Nero.
My God.
Oh my God. Yes, Laura fucking Nero.
Talk about a voice of an angel.
Oh my God. Yes.
I just got some serious
Laura
lesbian
Nero.
cred, didn't I?
Oh God. I mean, I'm getting the toy out for like so many reasons.
You and me both, sister.
Yeah.
Judy, this was so much fun.
Andy, I am so honored to be on your podcast because you have really good guests. And I was a little jelly of some of the people. I was like, oh, I guess he doesn't really like me. And this was I loved it.
Great. That means you'll have to come back.
Yes, I would like to come back.
All right. And I am going to look forward to that. Thank you again for coming on.
Me too.
And,
anytime.
Enjoy life, as they say. Until next time.
I'm going to try.
All righty.
Try. It's not working. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Take it easy.
This episode of The Back Room was edited and produced by me, Andy Ostroy. It was co-edited and co-produced by Maddie Rosenberg. And co-produced by Jen Hammoud. Our theme song was composed by Andrew Hollander. And our logo was designed by Cricket Langell. And special thanks to Patricia Wind. Please take a moment to rate and review the podcast. And also follow or subscribe. Until next time, keep your eyes on Washington, Hollywood, and your own backyards. And have a great week.